is in the canvas. It's at the very bottom of the modules, basically. So this is the study guide that you need to get. These are all of the structures that you need to know, basically, in there. Okay. So the lab practical, again, will be organized by stations. So that you can see there are 24 stations. There are 24 seats. Right. This will be station number 1, and then number 2, then number 3. And then you make the way around this way. This would be like 8 or 9, all the way down here. And then this would be like 12 or 13. And then you go over there, you go all the way down, and you go across, and that will be station 24, right next to you. Station 24 right there. No. At the table.
Oh.
Yeah. So after 24, then this is 1, okay? So when I give you the test sheet, it's going to have station 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure that you turn to the right station for the exam, right? This is station 1, you should be at question 1. This is station 13, you should be at station, you should look at station 13. I say that because people are always, they all start at 1, no matter where they are. I say, so it's a mistake, obviously. Okay, so you'll have about 1 minute and 35 seconds. So once we start, then it's a constant clock that just gives us a little bit of a chime, a little bit of a ring, which means at that point, just get up and go to the next one, basically. Okay. Yay! You can just leave it right there. Let's go back. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Okay. So here we have a lot of slides there as well. Okay. So there are slides that may very well be on this test. Okay. So as far as the blood's concerned, we have a lot of, again, it could be a slide or it could be this. You can see this represents this what we refer to as a blood smear. You can actually see all of the red cells in there. You see a lot of different white cells, right? So you should be familiar with most of these white cells, and also the fact that we also have platelets in here as well. And there's a legend over here on the side that helps you depict these structures. So that might be on there. Don't worry about calculate a hematocrit. Don't worry about it. Okay. There might be some ABO blood grouping. So you should be familiar with the ABO blood groups and also with RH. Okay, should be familiar with that. So just look at the lab to check that out. Also blood vessels. We're going to have several of these models that we're going to use for blood levels, blood vessels. So I'm going to have a little bit of piece of tape. I'm going to put it on the blood vessel. There'll be like a little 1 on there, a little bit of 2. So I'll probably have at least 3 or so blood vessels per model, right? So you should be able to figure out all the blood vessels, especially the blood vessels that emanate from the aorta, right? Right in the middle we have the left carotid, and then over on the side we have the left subclavian, and then over on the right side you start out with the brachiocephalic, and then it breaks down into the cephalic, the brachial. You should be familiar with all of those vessels, right? I'm not going to go through all of them now, but you can see the femoral, see the iliacs. The larger vessels you should be familiar with, all right? This is the descending aorta, or sometimes called the abdominal aorta, since we're in the abdomen, right? And this other one, which is a different color, right? The red is arterial, and the blue is venous. This would be the inferior vena cava, okay? And then we have the iliacs. We have arterial iliacs, and we have venous iliacs as well. And then we have femorals, and then we have also the great saphenous. You should be able to pick up all of these things, right? Anyway, we'll definitely be blood vessels on there. So you can see I have several models here. So that will be just laid out here on one of the stations. And just pay attention to the test itself and read what it says. It'll be an introductory question. And then you should look at what the number is and then put down the answers. Right? It's all fill in the blanks. There are no word banks. So you really need to, study the anatomy of these structures. Okay, blood vessels. Also on page, of your lab manual, if you go look at page 474, which has the, I believe that those are the arterial vessels, and 479, those have the venous vessels. All right, so those are the two diagrams that you should concentrate on to study for these blood vessels. Okay. All right, as far as the heart's concerned, there's a lot associated with the heart. There's going to be a lot of questions. The first few, or 5 or 6 stations here will have to do with the heart. So you really need to know all of the various structures of the heart. Again, you can see sometimes we refer to this as the ascending aorta, and then this would be the arc of the aorta, and then the descending aorta. All these 3 vessels, you should be familiar with those vessels, okay? Also, that there are coronaries, right? You can see the coronaries themselves. It's very difficult to see some of them, basically, so I usually don't ask coronary arteries, so don't worry about that, I guess. Okay, you should know the pulmonary trunk, right? You should know that, all right? Of course, on the outside, you should know this is the apex. We should know by now that this is the right side of the heart, the left side of the heart, right? This will be the ventricles, all right? This is the right ventricle, this is the left ventricle. And you should be familiar with some of the structures inside, right? First of all, the little corrugations of the muscles. What's that called? I'm not getting any response. Trabecula carni. Trabecula carni, okay. Also, you can see that there are these little white strings. Those are actually little tendons that are associated with the valves themselves. These little strings are called chordae tendineae. Chordae tendineae, chordae tendineae, basically. They're also associated with a small muscle. It's very difficult to see. There's a small muscle that associates the cords to. That muscle is called the papillary muscle. Okay, so you get the papillary muscle, the chordae tendineae, and on the right side, what's the name of the valve between the aorta, between the atria and the ventricle? What's the name of the valve? Right side? Mitral valve. Mitral valve. Okay. Then on the left side, we have similar structures, except of course the muscularity is a lot thicker on the left side. But we still have a different type of valve here. In this case, we have the mitral valve. This one is the no. This is the tricuspid. This is the bicuspid or the mitral valve. Okay. All right. Also, if you take a look underneath, you see additional structures. This one doesn't show you the aorta. What's it get? That's okay. Take a look underneath here. You'll see this structure right there. This is just one type of model that of the heart that I'll use. But there are other models as well. They all look really rather similar, but some models are better at expressing certain structures than others. Okay. Here, if you take a look underneath here, right? These are the semilunar valves associated with the pulmonary trunk or pulmonary artery. Right, this is referred to as an artery actually because it's leaving the heart. Remember, all vessels leaving the heart, those are arteries. So these would be the semilunar valve. It's not evident here as far as the semilunar valve is. Oh, here it is. It's kind of hidden in here. Take a look under the left ventricle. You can actually see it under here. This is the semilunar valve for the aorta. You should be able to identify that. This model is tough to see, but I have other models that will be easier to take a look at. Again, the semilunar valve. And you should say, it should be the aorta semilunar valve, right? Okay, let's see. Now if we go into the right atria, right, we know that there are a couple of vessels that are making their way into the right atria. Right, one of these is this one. This is the inferior vena cava. Then this one on top is the superior vena cava. All right, that goes right into the right atria. Now, if you take a look at the right atria, there also is a little bit of a depression in there. Right, that depression is the fossa ovalis. Fossa ovalis. They see little number 1 on there, basically. Little depression. There's a lot of going on in the right atria. Also in the right atria, you can actually see a little bit of the little red dot that's in here. Right? This is blood coming in from the coronary sinus. This is blood that is coming in from the arterial section that is involved with the allowing for blood to make its way to the heart, and so the return blood, the venous blood, makes its way to the right atria. So you have really the coronary sinus in the right atria, and then you have the superior and the inferior vena cava. So you actually have three entryways into the right atria. In the left ventricle, though, right, we have series of 4 vessels. These are veins that are making their way from the lung into the, now this is aerated blood, making their way into the left atria. So there are actually 4 small openings in the left atria. 2 from the left lung and 2 from the right lung, making its way into the left atria. Right. Then of course you should know the names of the ventricles. And of course this structure in the middle, it divides the ventricles. Right, that's the septum. Right, that's the septum. Okay. All right. So I think if you know all those structures, you should do reasonably well, right? So that's the heart. So I do have some coronary vessels that you should know, okay? One would be this large one here, basically, right? This one is called the interventricular coronary artery. Interventricular, it's right on the septum, basically. And it's in a interventricular sulcus. There's a little bit of depression in there as well, right? The vein really has the same name, except it's called a vein, basically. You can't really see the coronary arteries too well because remember you can see one of them. You can see it's actually coming in right here. This is the right coronary artery, right there. Okay. And then the left one obviously will be on the other side, which you can't see very well, but it's really, you still can't see it, but it's really inside the vessel there, right? And then we end up having the circumflex over on this side. Anyway, you really don't need to know a lot of the vessels associated with the heart, but you should at least know those, right? Some of the common ones, okay? Okay. All right, let's see what else we have. All right, know the arteries and veins entering and leaving the heart. You know the need to know the chambers. Valves and muscles. Of course, associated with that, we have a slide, right? We have a cardiac slide. You should be familiar with a couple of things. You should be able to identify that it's a cardiac muscle. You should be able to identify the intercalated disc. And if I point to the white material on the outside, you should know that that is connective tissue, okay? Connective tissue. So again, we have lots of slides here as well. So again, the lab downstairs is not open right now because she's getting ready to give her lab practical actually already. Right, so they're doing hers early. All right, any questions on the heart? All right, so now we move to the lymphatic system. So we really just did that. Okay, so here's the lymphatic system. We're going to do this. Did bring it out. Huh. So here it is. All right, so you will see this as well. It's unfortunate we have such large models. So of course you should be familiar with these little white tubes, right? Those are the lymphatic vessels. You can see they're making their way through these yellow structures. These are called the lymph nodes, right? The lymph nodes are they're really making their way all the way through the lower body, and eventually they will make their way into the cisterna chyli. You should be able to know what that is, cisterna chyli. Notice that there are little groups of nodes. These are in the inguinal area, so they call these the inguinal nodes. You can see how grouped they are. Under the armpit, we have the axillary nodes. then we have the cervical nodes here in the neck, basically. And look at all the nodes in the digestive processes. Just about every organ has a series of nodes, because they're there for the protection of the organ system, right? They have the immune system involved in there. But there's capillaries in all of those vessels, and the primary responsibility, again, is to bring back that extra volume of fluids that the capillaries have left behind. Right? It's also involved in the digestive process, okay? So we do have this structure. We have a couple of structures like this. Okay? This is what you would find in the small intestines, these villi, right? The villi themselves are involved with absorbing of the digested nutrients. Things like glucose molecules and amino acids, well, they're making their way into the blood vessels. You see the red blood vessels in there. The fat molecules are really kind of large, so they don't make it into the bloodstream. Rather, they make it into these green structures. These are called lacteals. Right? You should be familiar with that, basically. And also, as you look further down, you know, some of these structures are actually immune structures. Some of these would be mucus glands, and some of the other structures, this looks to me like it would be a Peyer's patch. Peyer's patch is also involved, like tonsils, in the immune system. Right? You should be familiar with that as well. So that's a good one. So here we are, we're making our way into the cisterna-chyli, and of course the first duct is the thoracic duct. That's that white line, that's the thoracic duct. It's making its way over on the left side. In between the jugular and the left subclavian, you see that there's an entryway right there for that thoracic duct. Okay? That drains pretty much the entire body except for the right quadrant. The right quadrant is drained by the right thoracic duct, and it comes over on the other side. Again, you can see the right subclavian, you can see the jugular, and right in the middle there is where it associates. So all the lymph material, all the fluids from the body, all the digestive fats themselves, they all make their way back into the venous system. And you can see that they're directly going into the superior vena cava and into the right side of the heart. Okay. And so really, that's about all you need to know for the lymphatic system. All right? So you need to know those things. All right? So, let's see, what else do I have? Oh yeah, you should also know where all the tonsils are located, right? Right, the tonsils themselves, you can see up here, right, we're in the nasopharynx. You should know the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. You can see the pharynx itself also is associated with the tonsil, right? This is the pharyngeal tonsil here that I'm pointing to. Okay. Get a little bit further down, you can see a little spot in the back here. Really difficult to look at. There's a red spot back there, right? That's the palatine tonsil. And then there's one associated with the tongue, right there in the back of the tongue. You really can't see it looking into your mouth, but that is the lingual tonsil. You should be familiar with that. Okay. So you should be able to point those out, as well as the pharynx. All right. You'll be able to identify this structure, this gray structure, right there, right? That is the spleen. Okay, that's the spleen. You should be able to identify that. Let's see. We also have some slides that you should be familiar with. They're all listed here. We took a look at the lymph node slide. We took a look at the spleen slide. We had a tonsil slide, and we had a Peyer's patches slide. So you should be able to identify those structures by looking at the slide. Now you actually have a list of slides here that you should be looking at, be able to identify the tissue in those slides. Okay. All right, any questions so far? All right, now we move into the respiratory system. And of course, respiratory system looks this, right? You should be familiar with all of these structures. You should know that, of course, that you have the right lung and the left lung. You should be familiar with the fact that we have a little indentation to make room for the heart. It's called the cardiac notch. That's correct. Okay. Also, you should know these various fissures, right? We have horizontal fissure and an oblique fissure on the right line. We only have one fissure on the left line, which is an oblique fissure. 2 sections versus 3 sections, okay? Right. You can see that we also have this giant muscle underneath here, right? That's the diaphragm. Should be able to know that one. Also, you begin to see vessels. This this large red vessel, right? That's the descending aorta. Okay. So this is the trachea, right? This is what we're looking here at the very top, right? So you should know that this bone is the hyoid bone, okay? And the hyoid bone itself is associated with all of these structures. It doesn't show the thyroid membrane here, but there's a membrane in here as well. So this is the cartilage, right? This is the thyroid cartilage. Again, this is the prominence, or the Adam's apple, we should know that, okay? If you go further down, you see another piece of cartilage, cricoid. This is the cricoid cartilage. Then you have the beginning of the C-rings. There's about 16 or 18 C-rings, right? Also, you should realize that this little tongue that you see up there, that is the epiglottis. Okay, if you turn it around, you see that the C-rings themselves are associated with a smooth muscle. Smooth muscle itself is called the trachealis muscle, okay? And then further up, as we make our way back into the larynx, we can see that we see some additional cartilage structures here. These are the arytenoid cartilage, and you can see that they actually spin, around basically, and they're associated with the vocal cords. The vocal cords stretch from the Adam's apple all the way to these arytenoid structures. You can see that they actually control the opening. If you're breathing, they swivel open so that you can actually get air through that space. That space has a name, right? It's called rhimaglottitis. Rhimaglottitis. That's the space. That's the hole, basically. Okay. Then to the left and the right are the vocal cords. Right? They're a lot thinner than this. They have these really large, but they're a lot thinner than that. Okay. So you should be able to recognize that as well. All right. So pretty much for the larynx, that's about it for the larynx. Okay. All right. Trachealis, epiglottis, glottis. And then we get into the alveolar structures, all right? You should know the names, first of all, right? Alveoli is a plural, and then alveolus. Each of these little balls is an alveolus structure, basically. You can see the various types of connective tissue. I kind of group these large, looks like a bunch of grapes, really groups these grapes together, basically, right? Then you have various vessels, and then you have this structure. What's this structure leading into the arterial? This is a bronchiole. You can see that already you see a little bit of muscularity associated with the bronchiole, these little patches of muscles, basically. And it controls the airways, controls how much air makes its way into these large alveolar structures, basically. All done autonomically. Remember, all smooth muscles are autonomically controlled. So when you take a look at one of these structures, right, this is the alveoli. It's one of those little round balls that we see. First of all, you can see that there's a lot of coronary arteries, a lot of capillaries associated with these structures. Because again, this is where the exchange of gases takes place. Okay. Also, you should notice these little holes, right? There are pores. So when air rushes into these structures, it's distributed through all of the alveolar structures that are in that group of alveolar grapes, basically. Okay. So it's unfortunate, but you can't really determine the different cells, the different types of cells in there. But of course, there's type 1 and type 2 cells, but I can't really see where they differentiate. I mean, I see some here that have a little yellow to it, basically. That's probably a type 2 cell. The rest of them are type 1 cells. You know, this type 1s is the simple epithelial, simple squamous epithelial. And then the type 2 is a surfactant cell, right, that produces the surfactant cell. A lot of moisture in there. Okay. There's not much there. Okay. cartilage, trachealis. All right, except for the slides, that's pretty much it. So if you know all those structures, at a minimum, that will give you at least an A.
Do we have the nasal
Oh,
structure?
good point. Here it is. This is the nasal structure. Thank you. I want to get there. You can see that we have inside the nasal cavity, okay? We can see that we have that little bone I was telling you about. This is the olfactory lobe. You can see it's got little nerve fibers coming down. And this is the ethmoid bone. And it allows for these nerve endings to make its way into the superior part of the nasal cavity. Again, this is for the sense of smell. You can see there are little mountainous areas. These are called conchae. Right? There's an inferior, there's a medial, and then there's a superior conchae. Okay, and in the middle, we have what I call meatuses. Meatuses are the little valleys. Right? First, they're covered with blood vessels. They're covered with tissue. Remember, simple squamous epithelium. And here comes the air, because it's hilly, right? The air there's a lot of turbulence in there. So the air comes in, of course, it's heated because of the capillary system, and it's also moistened because we have a lot of moisture in there as well. And then the atomization from all of that turbulence allows for the sense of smell to pick up these molecules, right? It's in the atmosphere. Right. Here you have a better look at this is the ethmoid right here. And this when we took it off, we saw the olfactory lobe up here. This is the olfactory lobe. And the nerve fibers go right through here. Right? And they go right through there. That's the ethmoid bone. You see all the sinuses, hollowed out areas of the bone, those are sinuses. You can see that we have, this is the mouth, this is the oral cavity. You can see that this is the uvula, right? Then you have the soft tissue, right? And then you've got the palatine bone, right? Palatine bone is the roof of the mouth, basically, right? Right. So you may see this model.
Where's the cribiform at?
It's right in here. You
Okay.
took that piece of bone out, basically.
Okay.
It's missing. But it would be in here. So this is the ethmoid, the ethmoid is missing, but this is where the ethmoid would be right there. So if we took this out, it would look just like this. Here we've actually incorporated the olfactory lobe. Again, it's cranial nerve number 1.
So that's the nose like cut in half?
Huh?
So it's like in half, basically?
Yeah, this is cut in half, basically, just, you know, so we can reveal the nerves, nerve fibers. So yeah, there are little tiny holes in here. If you take a look at the top here, you can actually see the little holes there. That's why it's called cribriform. Cribriform, it means that you've got some tiny little holes in there. All right, nice model. Okay. I think that was it, really. Then there'll be a few slides.